All right, ready to dive into the world of Miyamoto Musashi. This guy, legendary samurai, undefeated over 60 duels. And that's just the start.
What gets me about Musashi is it's way more than just sword fighting. His wisdom, people still study it centuries later. Strategy, personal growth, how to lead, it's all there.
We've got a ton of material on him this time, historical stuff, the Book of Five Rings, obviously, and even modern takes on the guy. So I guess our mission today is to really get what Musashi was about and see if it makes any sense, here in the 21st century.
Yeah, it's going to be a journey. From when he was just this young duelist kid to wandering warrior, then we'll get into those two swords he used and, of course, the strategies he wrote about.
Okay, so early life, not your typical childhood, right? This guy, first duel at 13 years old. 13.
Hard to imagine. But he was all in on this Musha Shigyo thing, samurai tradition, basically traveling around, testing yourself, real combat, like a warrior pilgrimage. That's where his swordsmanship got honed and where his whole philosophy starts to come from.
And when you say duels, Musashi's got some famous ones, right? Sasaki Kojiro, that fight on Genryu Island, that's got to be top of the list.
Oh, absolutely. That duel tells you a lot about Musashi's strategy. He showed up late, famously. Some people thought it was disrespectful, but really it was a mind game, messing with Kojiro's head, and then the weapon he used.
Yeah. Didn't he make a sword out of an oar or something?
A vonkin, yeah, a wooden sword, but longer gave him more reach.
So always thinking a few steps ahead. Classic Musashi.
Exactly. Timing and knowing when to adapt, figuring out your opponent's weakness. That's how he stayed undefeated, along with the crazy skill, of course.
And it's weird, right? Those same things, adapting, timing, using the environment. It's like all through his philosophy.
It's all connected. His fighting, it was just how he saw the world, played out physically. And you see that in his writing, the Book of Five Rings. That's where it all comes together, near the end of his life.
It's like his playbook, not for fighting, but for life. And he breaks it down into these 5 books, right? Earth, water, fire.
Wind and void. Each one's a different part of strategy. What's so cool is how he ties the physical and the mental together.
So start with Earth. That's like the basic.
Foundation, discipline, yeah. Then it builds from there all the way to void, which is like mastery but intuitive. It came from being a duelist, but he thought these ideas applied to anything you do.
So not about winning fights, but about getting really good at whatever you're into. The way, he called it, right? Doof.
Yeah, the way. It's about always improving, striving for excellence, and he walked the walk, He thought real experience mattered more than just reading about stuff.
Mastery through practice. Man, that hits home for me. Anything I've ever gotten good at, it's from doing it, messing up, doing it again, not from some book.
Musashi's all about that. You got to get your hands dirty. That's how you learn. You can't just read about it.
So out of all of Musashi's life, his writing, what do you think is the most important lesson?
Tough one. But I keep coming back to mushin. It means no mind. It's about acting without overthinking, pure instinct.
Like athletes being in the zone, or artists when they're just flowing.
That's it. And Musashi, he was all about mushin. So back to Musashi and this whole mushin thing. No mind, acting on instinct, no overthinking. It's powerful stuff.
And he used it for everything, not just sword fighting.
Oh yeah, he saw life as one big strategy game, basically. Choices, actions, gotta be decisive.
I was thinking about how well-rounded this guy was. We talk swords, strategy, but he was an artist too, right? Calligraphy, painting, sculptures.
He was, and you can tell, looking at his artwork, that same precision discipline. It's there in the brushstrokes, the way he carves stuff.
Makes you wonder if the art fed into his strategy or the other way around. Maybe they were all connected somehow.
It's possible. Musashi was all about mastering lots of different things, not just one path, That's how he saw the world. Maybe all those skills, all that knowledge, it gave him a unique perspective.
That makes sense. And speaking of unique perspectives, that fight on Genryu Island, Musashi versus Sasaki Kojiro, we got to talk about that.
Legendary duel. One for the history books. Swords clashing, sure, but also philosophies, styles. You had Musashi, the unpredictable one, always adapting, playing mind games. And then Kojiro, this master swordsman, known for his lightning-fast technique, the swallow return.
Oh yeah, that move was supposed to be impossible to block, right?
Pretty much. So fast, it was like a swallow changing direction in midair. Kojiro's signature move. Musashi would have had to plan for that very carefully.
So how do you prepare for a guy like that?
Well, we know he showed up late, right? Deliberate tactic, mess with Kojiro's head. Plus, he fought with a bakken, the wooden sword, made from an oar, remember?
So it's a theme, right? Musashi, always doing the unexpected. But facing Kojiro, even with the mind games, That's got to be risky.
Every duel has risk. But Musashi, he understood timing, he could read his opponent, knew how to use distance, spacing. That all gave him a chance. He probably studied Konjiro's swallow return, figured out how to counter it.
Like chess, but with real stakes. That duel, it's almost like a metaphor for life itself, right? Opposing forces, strategy, timing. You got to adapt.
Exactly. Musashi's whole life, especially that duel, it's a lesson for us. Expect the unexpected. Find your own way. Get so good at what you do, you react without even thinking.
This reminds me of Shuhari, that three-stage mastery thing we talked about before. It's like Musashi's whole journey in a nutshell.
Shuhari, yeah. It's a beautiful concept. First stage, Shu, it's about the basics. Learn the rules, master the fundamentals. That's Musashi as a young guy training hard in traditional swordsmanship.
Learn the rules before you break them, right? Classic.
Exactly. Then you get to you start breaking away from the tradition, experimenting, finding your own style. That's Musashi developing his two-sword technique, the Niten Ichi-ryu.
He wasn't afraid to go his own way, challenge the norm. And then Ri. Isn't that about going beyond technique altogether?
Yeah. Ri is mastery, but it's effortless. Think of a master calligrapher. The brush just flows. It's natural. They're not thinking about technique anymore. They're just expressing themselves.
It's that Mushin state again, isn't it? No more thinking, just pure understanding.
Exactly. Musashi, he lived the Shuhari principle, mastered the basics, found his own style, and then reached that level where it all became intuitive.
Inspiring, right. But it also makes you think, how do we do that? Shuhari, Mushin. And most of us aren't going to be sword masters.
That's the challenge, how to take these old ideas and make them work today. But Shuhari, it's not just about swords. It's any skill, any discipline you want to master. It's how you learn, how you grow, how you push yourself further.
And Mushin, maybe it's about finding that flow state in our own lives. Could be art, sports, or even just doing something that makes you really focused, clear-headed.
It's a good way to look at it. These ideas, they're old, but they still matter.
I'm definitely thinking about all this now. But before we go too far, there's one more thing about Musashi we haven't touched on. Detachment. It's a big part of his doku, his way of walking alone.
Ah, yes, the Dokkōdō. Powerful stuff. It's about self-reliance, keeping things simple, and not getting attached to things you don't need. It's almost like the spiritual side of Musashi's thinking.
Back for the final round of our Musashi deep dive. We've covered his life, the strategies, even the art. But we got to talk about this Dokuden, way of walking alone, right?
Yeah, the Dokkōdō, it's kind of different from his other stuff. It's like 21 rules for life, but it's all about being self-reliant, disciplined, finding inner peace.
Almost feels spiritual, right? Like his other writings are about strategy, but this is like how to handle your inner world.
Definitely. Musashi's big on detachment in the Dokkōdō. Not getting hung up on possessions, on what happens, even on your own ego.
Whoa, that's hardcore, especially these days. It's all about getting more stuff, achieving more, right? Musashi's like the opposite of that.
He was. He thought real strength comes from inside, finding peace that doesn't depend on anything outside of you.
It's not like becoming a monk or anything, but more like appreciating what you have, but not letting it own you.
Exactly. Musashi's all about the middle path, being in the world, but not getting lost in all the distractions, the desires.
One of his rules that hit me was, do not regret what you have done. It's like dwelling on the past. It gets you nowhere. Got to focus on now and move forward.
It's true, isn't it? We all mess up. We all have things we wish we'd done differently. But Musashi's saying accept it, learn from it, and keep going.
There's another one. It's kind of tough, especially now. Do not let yourself be guided by the feeling of lust or love. Whoa!
It's a tough one, yeah. But I think what he's getting at is, don't let those desires run your life. You can feel them, but don't let them make your decisions for you.
Enjoy it, but don't be a slave to it. Something like that.
Yeah, that's it. It's about balance. Indulge a little, sure, but don't lose yourself in it.
So how do we actually do this detachment thing? Reading it is one thing, but living it, that's got to be hard.
It's not easy, but maybe start by noticing what you're attached to. What things cause you stress? What do you worry about losing? Could be stuff, could be some outcome you're hoping for, could even be an idea.
And once you know what it is, how do you let go?
It takes time. And it's different for everybody. But maybe be grateful for what you've got. Practice being present, mindful.
It's like shifting your mindset. Instead of thinking about what you don't have, appreciate what you do. Maybe that's where real happiness comes from, not from things.
That's the core of what Musashi's saying. Finding that inner strength, that peace that nothing can shake. no matter what life throws at you.
You know, after all this Musashi stuff, I'm really feeling it. He wasn't just some tough guy with a sword. He was deep, you know, philosopher, artist, always searching for wisdom.
He was. And it reminds us that being good at something, it's not just the skills. It's about understanding yourself and the world around you.
And Musashi's lessons. Strategy, discipline, detachment. That stuff's timeless. It can help us now, just like it helped him back then.
It's a journey we can all take, one step at a time, like Musashi did all those years ago.
So, to everyone listening, go check out the Book of Five Rings and the Dokkōdō. See what you think. You might be surprised what you find.
Musashi's wisdom, it'll challenge you. It might even help you find your own path to mastery.
Thanks for joining us on this Musashi deep dive. Until next time, keep on exploring.